Hey, there's been a controversy in recent days in Scotland, which some are dubbing Flaggate. I want to discuss this, but I want to bring in some other issues because I think that there is a very clear process going on led by Scottish nationalists that really needs to be challenged. And if it's not challenged, it will go on unabated. And what it really amounts to, and I've no problem saying this, is a sort of form of cultural cleansing. So bear with me. Basically, this flag controversy arises from the fact that the Scottish devolved government has published its 2018 guidelines on where flags should be flown in ceremonial roles. So there's a number of flags that are used in Scotland. The Union flag, um, not actually called the Union Jack. That's a misconception. The Union Jack is more a naval ensign. The Union flag, the Scottish Saltire, um, St Andrew's flag. There's a number of other flags that are used. For example, get the Gay Pride flag, um, the Commonwealth flag. So there's a number of flags that are used in public occasions. Now, Nicola Sturgeon has managed to win a case. She actually took the step of demanding an apology from three newspapers that had said it was the Scottish Daily Mail, the Daily Telegraph, and the Daily Express. They had said that this situation whereby, well, basically, the situation right now is that the Union flag is only going to be flown, if I'm not mistaken, on one day of the year, which is Remembrance Day, and Armed Forces Day if it's applicable. But basically, yeah, this is greatly scaled back, obviously, from the days before devolution. Um, Now, Nicola Sturgeon's asked for an apology from these three newspapers because they reported it that she had made the decision. The decision had been made in 2010 under Alex Salmond. So I suppose technically she's within her right to complain about that. But the principle remains that there is a very clear thing going on here. The Scottish nationalists are trying to erase any trace of the United Kingdom from Scotland. They are basically trying to airbrush 300 years of shared history. And it's a damn good thing they haven't touched Remembrance Day because tens of thousands of Scots sacrificed in two world wars. To give an example, 1,000 men approximately from the Isle of Lewis alone were killed in the Great War. The Isle of Lewis is one of the most remote parts of the United Kingdom. There are a number of other areas. The birthday of the Duchess of Rothesay, the birthday of the Duke of Rothesay, which is Prince Charles's title in Scotland, and they have this whole guideline method for where these flags are flowing. And there was an indication of this when the Prime Minister visited Holyrood to have talks with the First Minister. And what was very telling about that meeting, if you looked in the photo caption, these sort of meetings always have publicity photos where you have high profile politicians meeting together. Nicola Sturgeon and Theresa May were sitting there, two saltires in the background. Imagine the room is roughly shaped like this. So you have in fact, you can probably see my flag back there. Probably this is not the best example, but you had two saltires on either side um, above the two leaders, not a Union flag in sight. Not a Union flag in sight. Now, when Theresa May visited the other devolved governments as part of her job as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in Cardiff and in Belfast, the Union flag was there, along with the flags of those home nations. So St David's flag in Wales and the Ulster flag. What I find, well, not the Ulster flag actually, Northern Ireland's another kettle of fish. But the point is that this snub seems to be unique to the Scottish nationalists. And I do think that there is a process that is going on and it's gradual. It's not happening overnight, but it's gradual, where they really are trying to erase all signs of Britishness in Scotland, and it's utterly reprehensible. Another example of this is the fact that they spent tens of thousands on Scottish Gaelic on road signs, despite the fact that it's a very small proportion of the population, probably now less than a percent. I don't know what the exact figure is, but it's a very, very small proportion who actually speak Gaelic. And I don't know if anyone speaks it as a sole language. So that's an example of basically the SNP putting ideology before pragmatism and before Scottish taxpayers. But if you really, look at what is going on here, what the SNP exists for is nationalism. It's in their name, the Scottish National Party. I honestly believe that the whole social democratic centre left approach they take to things is secondary to them. Think if being conservative got them closer to Scottish independence, they would be conservative. The thing is, I'm not against everything the SNP politicians say on other issues. I also don't like Tory welfare cuts, and I think, for example, Mary Black is right to talk about the way the unemployed are scapegoated, etc. I'm not going to oppose the SNP purely for the sake of it. But when it comes to the issue of breaking up this country, breaking up this United Kingdom, and trying to erode the British history in Scotland, the United Kingdom more specifically, history in Scotland, I will oppose that 150% because this is a form of cultural cleansing. I wouldn't go as far as to say cultural genocide. I think that's a very loaded term. But what we are seeing is something that, unchecked, will get out of hand. I mean, look at the way SNP politicians speak. They say things like, as representatives of Scotland. Scotland and the United Kingdom. No, Scotland is part of the United Kingdom. SNP politicians talk like Scotland is already independent, like it's a separate entity from the UK. It's not. And they need to be reminded of the fact that it is not. They also need to be reminded of the fact that in 2014, there was a very clear vote for Better Together. More people voted for Better Together than voted for staying in the European Union. And I'm saying that as a Remainer. So what they are doing is basically trying to purge all signs of the United Kingdom and Scotland. Any Scottish business, this also applies to branding. If you look at something as simple as a bottle of milk, in Scotland under the SNP, you see these subtle, petty nationalistic gestures where instead of putting the UK flag, that it's a British product, they'll put the Scottish flag made in Scotland. Now, I would have no problem with that if it wasn't for the fact that it was purely done for their nationalistic agenda. Why not have the UK flag and the Scottish flag? The thing here is the nationalists think that they and they alone are the sole owners of Scottish identity. I've always said that Scotland is a unique country within the UK. I've always said that Scotland has a unique identity, and I have no problem with Scottish identity being promoted and protected. That's absolutely fine. But one of the strengths of a great nation is internal diversity. And look at all the other great countries in the world: France, the United States, Russia, China. They all have internal diversity, right? New York is drastically different from Texas. They both have their own culture, their own identity, but they are both part of the United States of America. Scotland is unique, England is unique, Wales is unique, and Northern Ireland is unique, but they are all in the United Kingdom. I really think that regardless of the precise nature of what is going on here in terms of, okay, so the press got it wrong on the fact that it wasn't Nicola Sturgeon that has ordered this personally. But the principle is still there. The principle is that they're trying to scale back. I mean, that thing about not having the Union flag at Holyrood was downright undiplomatic. It was rude. And it just showed to me that Nicola Sturgeon is attempting to, it was just the height of undiplomatic behaviour. I honestly think that Sturgeon sees herself as a head of government. I mean, as a world leader, and she's not. She's the head of a devolved government. Um, I really, I really can't wait till the next Scottish local government elections because, as far as I'm concerned, the more SNP seats are lost, the less influence they have, the further back this regressive anti-British agenda will be pushed. Will it's that's the only thing they exist for. Yes, they will talk about socialist issues. Yes, they'll talk about social democratic issues because they're trying to, take votes from Labour. And there's this thing going on in Scotland between the SNP and Labour. But fundamentally, the SNP is a nationalist party. Nicola Sturgeon got very annoyed when she was challenged about that independence is the only thing she talks about. But when actually you look at her record, when you look at the SNP's record, every time they don't get their own way, it's been a case of will threaten independence. They think that they can hold the United Kingdom to ransom. I oppose another independence referendum on the grounds the SNP did not respect the first one. They did not respect the once in a lifetime referendum. And I think that it would just create further division and instability. No, the United Kingdom government would be well within its rights to say no. I mean, where else in the world would you have a central government being held, basically being hijacked by separatists? And yes, I'm biased. I am absolutely biased because I don't want to see my country broken up. So I really think this thing needs to be heavily scrutinized. And by this thing, I'm talking about this gradual process of trying to purge all UK identity in Scotland. It's absolutely reprehensible. And Scotland, I'll close with this, Scotland is part of the United Kingdom. It's not Scotland and the United Kingdom, it's Scotland in the United Kingdom.